Hi, I'm Daz, and there's something quite large on the bench today. This is a Ferguson stereo miner, also known as a Model 3025. It's got two speakers, DIN socket, balance control, volume, bass and treble, and it's got a door. Ta-da! It's a record player, so there we go. So yes, you've got a hinge bit here with a turntable on. This looks like a little BSR turntable. The speaker's detachable, this left one, so you can increase the stereo separation. Here's the lead, still very much with the valve era, I suppose, with that plug. I'm not sure of the year, but it's in the radio servicing red manuals from about the 70-71. So it's 10 transistors. It's a mixture of silicon and germanium from the information I've got here. So an interesting thing. Let's explore it a bit more. Okay, the first problem is the tone arm has become detached. I can see, if we can zoom in, I can see that this part here is bent, so I'm hoping I could bend that back to shape. If not, hopefully, let's just make sure, there we go, we've got better focus now. Hopefully this part can be bent back into shape. There's a 13 amp plug on it, so I think the next thing I'm going to do is just power it up gradually through the dim bulb and bring it up on the variac carefully. So the first problem I've got to powering it up is I need to switch this turntable on. This unit uses an overwind on the motor, so it derives its secondary power from a winding on the motor, so the motor obviously needs to be running. Now it's stuck in off and I putting a little bit of force on, but that is not going on to on, so I've got an issue straight away, so we can't even test it. The speed control's moving and the turntable platter is free. Well, at least I haven't got to try and force that out. That's something. Because of I'm going to have to work on this first, I suspect I'm going to have to detach the turntable unit from the main unit. And behind here is a little panel, and I can see the cables are in a little panel behind it. But anyway, we'll turn it round, we'll have a look behind it and have a look inside and start that way. Okay, looking behind the unit, there's a convenient place to put your mains lead and your speaker cable. I guess this was aimed possibly at the teenagers market. You know, a transportable you could take to your friends. The speaker's only held on by one clip, so I could see that falling off on your foot occasionally. But obviously the idea of the speaker being on a cable is that you can separate the units to give you a better stereo separation, because you really want them a good metre apart if possible, depending on how you're sitting in the room. So that's a nice touch. You can see the auto changer part sticking up here out of this little hole here, so they obviously had to put that in to accommodate that. I seem to be missing some of the screws for the back. That's unfortunate, but I'm sure we'll find something else. Anyway, I'll start by removing this panel and also this panel here where the other speaker is, but I believe there's some wiring, the mains wiring in here, so I need that off, and I think the best thing is to detach that speaker so it doesn't end up dropping on my foot, plus it gives me more room on the bench. Okay, here's the rear with the backs removed. Now these are very, let's see if we can get it to focus, these very odd plastic looking screws in the back. Now I don't know where I could get those, but do you know what? I was just thinking a car accessory shop might have these, and these look like the sort of things you'd use inside a car, wouldn't you? That's quick, nice quick focus. Anyway, speaker's got 370 written on it, so must be 1970s then. You can see the deck mechanism folded up here, how it looks. There's the main amplifier board, there's a screw here, and I think the 2 screws on the front will release that. There's a tag strip here, which has got the motor and the auxiliary windings on it, so these will need to be unsoldered for me to remove the deck. There's 2 other screen cables here, which are going up to the amplifier. I wonder if they'll need removing as well. I suspect they'll need unsoldering as well. There is a plug here, which is coming from that tag strip, so maybe that will remove as well. Okay, right, so let's keep disassembling anyway. Here's the panel out. Unfortunately, I think I need some wood glue. But here's the amplifier, 2 channels. I've got to detach these pickup cables, grey left, green on the right. So I've got to detach those, and also those cables inside the speaker there, and I should better get the turntable out. Now, as it's got a DIN plug, I suppose it makes working on the amplifier a little bit easier as well. Okay, I've detached the wires from the tag strip. Here's the screened audio cables. As you can see, they go along here, and there's a little cover here, and those wires go into the phonograph itself. So I've just got to undo those screws, and I should be able to detach it from the body. I've already got the amplifier out, so that's good. Okay, so deck is out. Let's have a proper look now. Now, I found a bit in the bottom, which is lucky because I think I've just realised what it actually is for. Looks like it's the adjuster for setting the tension, hence why the spring's got nothing on it. So I've managed to do this screw and bend it straight. However, there's another problem. Right, as you can see, if I can just get this to focus, keep it in the middle of the screen, it should focus. There's a hole there. Now, unfortunately, what isn't here is a little pip to make contact with that, so I need a new rod. So that may have stopped my little game. Oh dear. Well, looks like I found myself a donor deck. This is from later 70s. It's got a smaller cartridge, but I think the arm is too long. So I've had a look, and the parts basically look the same, so I'm hoping that they'll fit. You know, someone like BSR, big manufacturer, they're going to use the same parts over and over again, aren't they? So, yep, I think that might solve my problem, thankfully. Well, it fits. Am I pleased or am I pleased? So I just have to be careful when I'm working on this not to damage it, but there we go. Got the springing that sets the weight, and you just turn the screw, I guess, to set that. So that's all good. There's a little bit of play in that, but anyway, I cleaned these bearings out, and they're actually, you'd be surprised, they're full of the usual brown BSR grease. Well, I'm just removing the base, and there's a date, look. 6th of February 1970. So as the filming date is today, that makes it 50 years old. I've noticed that there is some problems with some of the woodwork on this. Just move it into frame. That needs re-gluing. So anyway, don't know whether to leave it in this frame. I think I'll take it out of this frame as well. And then I'm going to make sure I put something down so I don't break the arm again. Well, here's the deck. So the BSR label there. K50L2. Here's the motor. You can see the main winding, and there's the overwind to provide power for the amplifier. There's the screen cables and the connector for that. Here's the treacle. So yeah, there's some rubber mounts here, the looks of it, so I'll carefully take them off and pop them in my bag so I don't lose them. Here's that bit here that's oh yeah, that's going to need to be re-glued. Hopefully none of the other parts are loose, he says. I guess that glue can deteriorate over 50 years. I've managed to free the start lever now. I just kept wiggling it and the grease seems to free. Now I face the prospect of trying to clean all this grease off. It looks quite a job, and I've just worked on 2 cassette decks. Seems to be that most repairs seem to be removing grease, but there we go. So anyway, at least that works now. I'm definitely not radio TV phono nut when it comes to turntables, but it was quite involved partly stripping down the turntable and re-lubricating it. I didn't in the finish decide to completely strip it, but I pretty much stripped most of it. Got the motor here. This is a induction motor, synchronous motor, whatever you want to call it. Magnetic field, there is some copper bits here which produce a phase shifted magnetic field as well, and basically this rotor here will rotate under the influence of the magnetic field and spin round at constant speed, well depending if the mains is a good frequency, but it usually is these days. It's pretty accurate. So what I'm just going to do is just mark what goes where with this so I don't accidentally put the wrong side on and make the motor go backwards. We could play records backwards, that might be a bit of fun. It'll probably get rid of the copyright issue, but I don't think that would do the Tonearm and style as much good, the record going backwards. So here's the motor disassembled. Now these look like phosphor bronze bearings to me, which I understand that's been explained to me is actually a porous material. And generally there is a sponge or a felt under here which can absorb lubricant and then keep feeding it through, but I can't see if this one actually has got, I'll have to look. I think it has got a pad. Usually you can see on this one. But anyway, I'm going to do is just give them a clean the bearings out and then re-lubricate and then reassemble the motor and just leave it at that. Although, to be honest with you, it doesn't actually feel that bad. Interesting, they've drilled out here to try and give this motor balance. See little drill holes. And you can see how it's sort of been made in laminations. I guess that's to reduce the losses. I'm not an expert on motors. I did study it, but that was 10 years ago. Well, you think you've done everything in the right order and then ended up not. I've just had to take the cam off again. I hope I took pictures of the right way round this goes anyway, but I'm just going to put the bearing on now. Ready for the turntable. I'm going to give the idler wheel a clean. Nice thing about the design about this, it actually disengages this idler wheel, because might help if you could see it. This idler wheel, it does actually disengage it when it's not engaged, which is really quite good, because a lot of them you pick them up and they've got a sort of dink in them. But I must confess, this is one of the first turntables I've stripped to quite an extreme to use it. Oh no, so anyway, I just finished greasing Trying to concentrate on what I'm doing and talking has always been difficult. But yeah, this grease does definitely go like treacle. Anyway, this is one of those rim drives, and as you turn the speed up and down, it connects to a different thickness part on this motor. So as it connects to this different thickness part of the motor, it changes the mechanical advantage, so you get your 4 different speeds. I noticed this one's got a little screw there. I don't know what that's for, but I think that actually is to adjust the height of this pinch wheel. I'm going to give this a clean. It's, oh, I don't know, it's fairly soft, so I might be alright. Yeah, that looks like that's aligning quite well with the spindle. It's hard to make sure this focuses, especially when something like this, but yeah, that looks good. I think I'm almost ready to put the turntable platter back on now. Well, that's always a good sign, isn't it? It keeps going for a little while. It's not the biggest platter, is it? Right, let's see. Aha! Yes, I have taken the stylus out. Oh, that looks promising, doesn't it? Ooh, good. And so to the amplifier itself. Very interesting design. The circuit boards are identical but populated differently. Makes you wonder whether they made a mono version of this. I guess they did. Selenium rectifier, germanium output transistors, and these epoxy topped transistors. They can be troublesome, so we'll see what happens. Mixture of resistors. These I remember. These molded resistors seem to be popular around the 70s. Still some carbon composite ones. There's mains on some of the parts of the board. These interesting EIRE capacitors from probably 69. The looks of the date marking on it. Just a close-up view of the board. The amplifier is designed to drive 15 ohm speakers. The input voltage is 18, given a DC of about 25 volts. So I haven't worked out how much power that is, but I guess it's only going to be 2 or 3 watts. With the 15 ohm speakers, it's not going to be a huge amount. But I guess that's what you'd expect for something about this time period. Getting access to the pots looks difficult. It's a positive earth chassis as well. Another thing that seems to be from the germanium era. Anyway, I'll get on and start seeing if I can recap this. Well, I've completed my recapping, and I've cleaned the contacts, managed to bend the nozzle around and get to the holes and gaps underneath these pots. Interesting component substitution. Some of these are bizarre values of the time, like 400 microfarad had to be 470. 250s had to be 330. It's basically what I've got in my bags of components, really. So I just have to use what I've got. But smoothing capacitor was 2500, so I've had to use 2200 and a 470. That sounds good. This metal oxide rectifier seems fine. I've put a load on it and just loaded it. I'm just running off my DC power supply, and it seems fine. As for the capacitors, they're a real mixed bunch. Now, it's obvious now to me that one has been replaced, because this is the original 75 and there's 100, made by Norman. Never heard of them. But yeah, some of the components are definitely no good, so I'm glad I've recapped it. That one is saying open circuit or low capacitance. Let's try one of these. This one is a 250 and it's saying 2049, so it must be very, very leaky. But some of them you measure, they're not so bad. Let's just get this one on. Whoops, there we go. That's a 400 microfarad and it's got quite a low ESR, so yeah, mixture. I often wonder, looking at these potted ones, what happens in the event of something going wrong. How do they vent, you know? Anyway, that's 69 on that one. Yeah. Here's the main smoothing cap, a Dali. I think I have heard of them. It's a British made one. Let's see what that comes at. 68, that date code on that one. See what that one comes out as. Yeah, 2900, quite low ESR. Not as low as I'd expect it, but okay, so that was worthwhile changing them. I'm getting closer now to re-power up, but I'm going to have to look at the mains cable. My goodness, that's got really caught in the entry hole there. It's, of course, been really nipped, hasn't it? Mind you, it is the modern colours, that's something. So I guess in conclusion then, someone has done a repair on here if that capacitor is different. I've looked at the voltages, they all look pretty similar to the diagram. Thing is, the quiescent current looks a bit low, but it ain't adjustable, so I just have to go with what it says. Might be they measured it in the AC line, and of course there'll be a power factor issue in that. So let's have a little bit of a look at some of the circuitry in the stereo miner. Again, the gram motor runs all the time, so me probably having the lid up while the motor's on is probably not a good idea, although it didn't rattle. It's got overwind again, and just a rectifier and a smoothing capacitor. It's about 25 volts. Just going to look at the preamp section because I think that's more interesting. So the cartridge comes in through a 1.5 meg ohm resistor, so it certainly cannot be loaded less than that. And looking at the input circuitry of the first amplifier, there is a 100k and a 1.2k there. Now obviously this is going to have an impedance, but it's going to be relatively high because the gain's going to be quite high. By the way, this has got all silicon transistors in apart from the output stage, which I found quite common in stuff about this age. I think once silicon transistors, power transistors got cheap enough, they didn't use them. The preamp is powered by a power supply derived by an RC network, so it runs about 17 volts. That's quite common as well. Instead of a voltage regulator, you might find just a resistor and a capacitor, just to smooth out the mains hum for the preamp, because obviously it's dealing with a lot lower signal level. And then they've chose to put the balance, volume and bass control after the first preamp, which makes sense, where the level's a bit higher. So basically that's just one channel just showing the input, so that cartridge is going to get a good match, which is probably why when I was playing some records, which unfortunately I can't play you, they sounded quite bass and not at all tinny like a typical Crosley does, I guess. Mind you, the speakers are considerably bigger as well, aren't they? So that does contribute. So yeah, just a little bit of the stereo miner circuitry. Another problem you seem to find is glue. As you can see, I can just turn this knob round. Unfortunately, they're all like that. Now, when they made these, they seem to have pushed the edge in round here, so I can't pull it out, which is a bit of a pain. There is a hole down there. Whether I could drop glue down there and use that to hold it, I don't know. Would it be strong enough? I'm also short of one of these. I'm not sure if I can find anything to stamp one out with. As I suspected, I wasn't going to be 100% certain this was going to work. One problem I found was this was bent out of shape. I've had to bend it, pull it up and bend it so it sits over here. So that's sitting right, but the problem is the whatever detects the size of the record. Now it appears to be this lever here, but this lever doesn't seem to be doing what it should do, and that's one part of the mechanism I've not looked at. So if I pull it up, okay, so it worked that time. I bet it won't work a second time. Oh, okay, it has. That lever's now gone down very slowly. Now if I run it again, of course it now thinks it's got a 12-inch record, so there's something wrong with this mechanism here. It might now mean I've got to take it entirely to bits. Oh dear. Now I'm getting serious. I've undone the arm, took the lifter off, took out the arm that holds the records, and I'm going to see if I can get the whole base off now. Oh dear. Well, there you go. There's the mechanism right out, and this is the bit I didn't do the other day, but doesn't look quite so threatening now. This is awfully stiff, very stiff. It's hardly moving, so maybe that's part of the problem. There's a little spring here. Whether this lever here pushes it back, I'm not sure. Anyway, that will teach me for doing half a job. Well, I've cleaned this up now, and I assume this lever pushes onto that little spring thing and pushes it up. It didn't before, it was too stiff for it, but maybe that's what the problem was. Let's just hope it is. Okay, so back together. Let's see if this has fixed the problem. Right, motor on. Yes. Yes, it does seem to fix it. I noticed that this sensor came up this time. Okay. Try a big record, a 12-inch. Right, now let's see what happens. Ha! Damn! It still doesn't work. So, thinking logically about this sensor is for 10 inches, I suspect, because it's not dropping 7, it's dropping 10 now. So this sensor here, which you can only really see when I've got this up, must be to sense that's a 12-inch there. So it must be whatever the mechanism behind this. Obviously it only trips it when the record goes down, but like so. There we go. So whatever is behind that is not working, so that will probably be why I can't get 12-inch. So my problem area is here. Now if I pretend there's a record up, now this little lever here is connected to it selects the cam for whatever, how far for the arm to go across. So if the white bit is up, as you can see the white bit's now in the way, so that lever hits the white bit. If that's down, because we've got a 10-inch or bigger record, then it goes then to this first catch on here. Okay, but what it should be doing when it hits the lever, the 12-inch lever, which is by the auto changer arm, it should be going to the second bit. So my puzzle is, obviously it only hits it when it drops, so there we go, it's moving it, so that arm would be able to get to the second latch. But where's the memory? This white thing will stay in one position or the other. This does not. It doesn't have a memory. There's nothing, once it's hit it, it keeps returning back on the spring. So you know, this part here, where's the memory on this? Now, daft question. Should that have grease on it? Or should this part be greased? Is that how it's done? How is it because I've cleaned it all up? Oops. So I'm just wondering whether you do actually need a memory, because if I... Oh, there we go. I just knocked it and it's just clicked to the next one. So I've just got it in the position where it... There we go. Let's move it back. Oops, there we go. So when this lever is knocked by the record, it is moving up the next notch. So why is it not always doing that? Well, not at all really. I'm so puzzled by this. That's really got me puzzled. Why? What I discovered is if I held this arm up very slightly, then 12-inch would be detected okay. I've had this arm off and made sure it is definitely well pushed into this bit. The metal part that goes down here is well pushed into this metal part here. And it wasn't really, and I'm not quite sure it was in quite the right notch, but this is now closer to here, so let's try again. Well, isn't that a relief? I've done this several times and it seems to be okay now, but I was cursing a bit, I must confess. I haven't got a stylus in here, so I better take this off. So yeah, maybe we're getting somewhere now. I'm just doing a little bit of work on the external speaker. Everything always sticks to the magnets, doesn't it? It looks a little bit sun bleached, but apart from that, that's okay. I've had to stick a lot of these bits of wood back on. They've come off. Obviously not enough wood glue, so anyway, I've dressed that. I found some acoustic wadding, so I might stick some of that in, just to make it sound a bit less boxy. I'm now looking to see if I can bodge this cartridge in. I've made another hole in this cartridge holder and try to align the stylus up so the stylus is in the same place, but it's going to be sticking down a bit more I think than the original cartridge, but I think that'll probably work for the time being. So this is what I've ended up with. Anyway, it should do the job for the moment. Perhaps I can get a better cartridge later, but that is my little bodge. I had to take a little bit off these wings to get it into the head shell, but it seems to have gone in nicely now. Hopefully that's the right way round. I was trying to identify the negative and positive just with the finger test, but yep, that seems in order. And that's what it looks like with the cartridge fitted. It does seem to protrude down more than the old one, but not too much, but yeah, a little bit more. Well, I'm going to have to live with that, I guess. Well, I think this gauge is probably a little bit too coarse. Goes up to 15 grams. Nice classic thing though. It's made by Garrett. You put the stylus on and then you move this down until it balances here. I've got this one. This one might have to do. It's more of a hi-fi one. Oh, that's by Goldring. So yeah, this screw here is what adjusts the weight. It just tensions this spring up, so quite basic really. Well, here's inside the old cartridge, and you can see there's some contacts there that make contact with the little bits of metal coming out the crystal, and it actually makes you wonder if that's where the problem lies, why it was dead. There's the little rubber bit that touches the needle, stylus, whatever you want to call it, and you can see they're at, I can get this to focus, might have to come out a little bit, there you go, that's better. Yeah, you can see that they're at a 45-degree angle. And there's a couple of bits of rubber further down there, which I suppose is what it sits on. So yeah, that's what inside a ceramic crystal cartridge looks like.
La Sidiola.
Of course, the nice thing about this record player is it's got a DIN socket tape radio, so you can use it as an external amplifier and of course record from the record player. And so I've connected my trusty Grundig stereo cassette player to it. Of course, the problem with records is I can't really play those, but I can play YouTube music. Anyway, that's the Ferguson stereo miner from about 1970. Also known as model 3025, so there you go. Different thing, I like this pull down deck. It's very much different for a portable record player. Anyway, thanks for watching this one, and I hope to see you soon, and take care.